welcome to another ARC review. Today we'll be discussing The Girl Behind the Glass by April Grace. And this is, as I said, this is an ARC review, and I am not sponsored, I am not paid. I wish I was, but I'm not. And this is a Snow White retelling of a sort. So take everything you know about the Snow White fairy tale, whether it be the original or whether it be Disney, and put it to one side for me, because this is removed enough from it that you won't think, oh, I know how this ends, then what's the point of me reading it? You won't have that with this. Now, as I said, this is an ARC review, and so there will be no spoilers allowed. And this comes out on the 14th of October. And as soon as it comes out, it will be linked in the description below. So if you are watching this after October the 14th, 2023, then the link will be in the description below and you can order it for yourself if you think it's right up your alley. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we are introduced to a world of witches and enforcers. The city of Cranwick is under the strict ruling thumb of the Wrath Witches, and this is due to a centuries-old curse. There's no protesting allowed against the regime of the witches, and the mayor of Cranwick's daughter, Winnie, who is one of our main female characters, she is starting to lose the blinkers that she has when it comes to the nefarious goings-on which are happening around her. So before, she's just sort of kept out of it, you know, I'm not getting involved, something's happening, I'm just going to look the other way. That is no more. And this culminates in Winnie accidentally killing one of the witches in one of the protests. And this happens after overhearing the same witch giving her mother Laria an ultimatum that she has to marry the distant king of Icefall in order to find the cure for her husband Farn, the mayor of Cranwick, who is slowly dying. And if she doesn't go and commit bigamy, essentially, and go marry this king of Icefall, then Farn will continue to sicken and die, and Winnie will be forced to take his place as the mayoress of Cranwick, and ultimately become the witch's puppet. Now, of course, Laria, I'll probably use both. I used both when I was reading it. Now, she can't have this happen to her only daughter, and so she ends up agreeing. And Winnie overhears all this, and this fuels her anger at the witches and at the general state of affairs in their lives. And Winnie is hell-bent on saving her gentle, loving mother from this fate, from having to go marry this king. And she begs her, practically on her knees, not to do this, and not to go to Icefall and betray both herself and her father and the whole life that they have built, the life that they have always known. And we switch the point of view to our other main female character, because there is, I think, there's three female main characters, and after Winnie's chapter we switch to Princess Frost. And Princess Frost is the only daughter of King James of Icefall. And she certainly doesn't trust her soon-to-be new stepmother, Laria, and she tries to warn her father to stop the wedding, to find out more about this woman before she just lets them in their lives. I mean, she doesn't even know where she comes from. But all of this is to no avail at all, and Princess Frost really misses her mother, the late Queen Rosa, and she goes to her glass statue in the garden because everything is made of glass, because it is a winter kingdom, so we have like ice and snow and all the nice sparkly things. Now, Princess Frost is betrothed to Prince Hugo of the Autumn Kingdom, and he is madly in love with her, but she doesn't feel the same way. She sees him, because she's grown up with him, she sees him as more of a brother, and he is her best and only friend that she feels in the whole world. She can tell him anything. He knows everything about her, every little thought, when she wants to be alone. He's sort of like a little Labrador puppy. He's quite cute. And it's first here in Princess Frost's point of view that we first get the contrasting opinions. Princess Frost doesn't trust Loraya, sees her as this evil stepmother trope, and wants nothing more than to bring about her downfall. And that contrasts with our other main character, Winnie, who is Loraya's daughter. And of course, to Winnie, she is her mother. She is gentle, she is loving, she has always been there for her. Pick her up when she's feeling down, teach her things. And it's really good writing that we get for those contrasting opinions that, although we get to know the characters, it just meshes together so well that we find ourselves swinging between one and the other. It's a grey area, and it's written really, really well, these contrasting opinions between these two characters, that we can understand both of their points of view because it is really, really well written. Now, the wedding between Loraya and the King of Icefall is fast approaching, and Winnie is ever more desperate to stop her mother from making a really big mistake. Now, in this world, the mirrors are portals to the other kingdoms. So we've got all the other kingdoms. We've got the Winter Kingdom, Spring, Autumn, Summer, Cranwick, all these things. And people access these kingdoms usually by going through the mirrors. And this is why Cranwick is known as the Mirror City. So Winnie begs and begs her mother to not go through with this wedding, and after she goes through the mirror, Winnie desperately jumps through after her. But the Wrath Witches control the mirrors, and they control who goes where for these. And if it's not in their interest, then you're not going anywhere unless you make a payment. So can Winnie come to terms with the price that she has paid, and what was the nature of the price extracted from her mother in order to travel through this mirror? But one thing is for sure, nothing in Winnie's world will ever go back to how it was before, and there is always a price to be paid. So that was just the first that was the first couple of chapters, sort of as a summary. The rest of the book does some really, really good deep dives. And the rest of the book is split up into 3 parts. So you've got part 1, part 2, part 3. This all happens right at the beginning of part 1. It's just a summary of a few chapters. And the ending of part 1, I was reading it and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, no! It really had me hooked. I was so hooked for it. Unfortunately, partway through part 2, the narrative started to lose me a little, and by part 3, I was done. There were so many characters introduced that I really couldn't keep track of them all, and the really, really fast shifts between point of view made it hard to feel a connection to any of these characters. And so I didn't really care what happened to them. And for me, most of them on the periphery were just irrelevant. They just didn't need to be there. It was also hard to keep track of events happening because they were happening so quickly and, for me, really sort of choppily, if that's a word. Things would just start to get interesting and then we would be switched to somebody else's point of view, far away from what we were reading before, without getting that closure or without delving more into what was going on in those points of view. The points of view needed to be longer like they were in part 1, and then I think I would have felt a bit more connected to the characters that are introduced, and the action slash battle, well really it's not other, and the action sort of sequences just seem to be over in a rush and kind of glossed over, for me anyway. I would have liked more in-depth for especially those, because they'd have had such a build-up coming before them. But in contrast to that, the world building in this is amazing. I would have liked to see some of the other kingdoms. We really only spend time in the Winter Kingdom, which this is where the story is. But there's sort of a lot of little lore snippets right at the beginning for these other kingdoms that make you really, really interested to want the story to go there or to find out what's going on. There's sort of some friction, some politics. It can be quite nefarious, this being a fairy tale retelling after all. And the main characters of Winnie and Princess Frost were really well written. The relationship between those two was really well done. And the way they end up coming together from both having their loyalties divided is really, really well done. It doesn't happen too fast. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It's a slow burn relationship. And it's really, really good to read. However, and there's always a however, I had a gripe with one character in particular, especially part 2, part 3. The antagonist felt a bit flat to me. I don't know whether it's because I'm more jaded with some of the books I read, that the villains of the story are more reprehensible than this one, but I wanted more from this character. This character was so well written in the first part, and that sort of dropped for me. What I envisioned this character to be, and I kept wanting her to be, was a type of Mother Gothel type menacing, sinister character, and I didn't feel that we got that. At some points this antagonist was just more of an annoyance, like a buzzing fly that you can't get rid of. And although we're told of the horrible deeds that this character commits and all of the, we don't really get a feel for how that impacts the kingdom. So when the interactions come with this character, when the to and fro and when the confrontations happen with this character, it's more of a pop than a kaboom. And I wanted the kaboom, or even the distant rumblings of a kaboom before a kaboom. I feel it's not as horrific in detail for what this antagonist does, and I feel that could have done more and that would have had more impact. It would have raised the stakes really high, because at the rest of the tale you don't really feel that the stakes are that high because you don't really know what the stakes are. But as I said, this is the first book in a series. This is our introduction into this world that is filled with lore. And as an introduction to the world of seasonal kingdoms, mirror travelling, witches, magic, there is a lot of lore potential, a lot of politics that's sort of hinted at, which I really, really like. And that could really impact the stories that are still to come. So for me, this book got 3.5 stars. As I said, I enjoyed reading it. I felt it could have been, it had more potential. And as with first books, we usually see the potential coming, the second one, the third one. That potential is then realised as we dive more into the lore, the world, the different characters, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. So if this sounds like something that you would like to read, the link will be in the description down below from the 14th of October, and as always, keep reading.